Hey, how's it going, Wellness Trooper? Matt McClure here. I wanted to tell you a little bit about this blog, thewellnessmat.com, and what it's about. I have this belief that wellness is everything in our lives, and it's kind of the most important thing because it reflects it in everything. Um, Everything you do has some kind of wellness aspect, and it could be helping your wellness or hurting your wellness. It just depends. And I think it all comes to balance when you really get down to things. Um, the main thing with wellness is about fulfillment. How do you fulfill your life in this day and age, especially when there's so many things to keep track of? I mean, clearly you have the computer, have internet access, and just from that alone, there's so many things on the internet, so many things to look at, grabbing your attention here and there. And I know you probably work or do something for a living, and that takes a lot of time. There's so many things to do for that, so many things to do with that. You might have relationships in your life. We're talking about friends, family, a spouse. You might have children. You know, employees, an employer. It could be anything. You got to keep track of all that. At the same time, you got to be able to relate to strangers at a good way too. And this, I think, also encompasses the whole aspect of wellness. Some other really obvious areas with wellness are, I would say, your lifestyle, how you live, what do you do with your life, and does that fulfill you? Because I think that's part of the reason why we're here. Is like, let's try to get some kind of fulfillment while we live. I think that's a big part of it. At the same time, we have to understand, our role and how we play a part in life. And I think that confuses a lot of people too, because we think that we're our jobs, our careers, etc. And we're much more than that, I think. I think we are. And so this is kind of what the blog's all about. It's hitting on a lot of subjects, and I'll also go into other areas too, like diet and fitness, or just your mindset, your overall mindset. Because I think that's another way we really get to be fulfilled in a sense, based on how we think. Our thoughts are just going off all the time. It's kind of like the human condition, and we can either let that, assist us in our life of, living some life of wellness and fulfillment and trying to find happiness, or we can let it like really hurt us. And I know a lot of people that just really have a lot of fears, anxiety, issues like that, and that's another thing we'll be able to work on this blog too. Like, I'm gonna help you find tools within yourself to really make some significant changes in your life. And I feel that's partly why we're also here, is to grow. I know that we have all these obstacles in front of us in life and challenges. Even if you were like a super rich person and you didn't necessarily have to work on a regular basis, you'd still have obstacles and challenges in your life. So one has to realize you can never push away your challenges and obstacles. And there's another saying with that too, is that what you resist persists. You can't just ignore things. For example, it's like, I don't want to exercise and I don't like eating healthy. It's hard to do. Well, you're always going to have a problem if you don't incorporate these things in your life, because it's kind of like, if you don't use it, you lose it. If you don't use your health, utilize it, and keep it up intentionally, you will lose it over time, and you'll lose it quickly, more quickly than you think. I don't know how old you are or where you're at in your life, and I know I'm in my mid-20s, and a lot of people my age aren't as concerned with health. People younger than me especially, but it seems like you have to feel some kind of health pain before you even start changing your ways, so to speak. And like I said, I don't know, you could be in your 30s, your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, I don't know. But I think this applies to everyone out there. And the reason why I can talk about the subject, I mean, you can clearly see that I'm speaking pretty congruently, coherently. I'm making sense here. I've had a lot of time investment in my life really focusing on these areas, because I wanted to be just living the life that, if I'm not hitting my greatest potential, I feel like I'm letting the world down, really. I'm not adding any value to the world if I'm not just being the best person I can be, and that's part of my goal, and that's also what I can help you accomplish in this blog. It's an ongoing thing we all must work on. But if you really want that self growth and that potential to really reach for the stars, too often people think with limits. They think that there's not enough to go around. They think that blank can't happen, or it's not likely, etc. I encourage you to not think with limits, because we really limit ourselves from living potentially the life of our dreams. And I think if you dream it and believe it, you can see it. If you put enough energy behind something you imagine in your mind, over time you can create it. And that's another thing we're going to really get into on this blog, is that everything in life is like planting seeds. You know, you see trees behind me. They used to not be that big and tall. They were small little sprouts. Not even that before. They were little seeds, right? Well, they had to be planted, and they had to get nourishment and water over time. And maybe some of these trees grew naturally, but for example, if you're going to grow a fruit tree, you intentionally plant the seed and you water it on a regular basis. And as you know, plants are very vulnerable at a beginning state. But as time goes on, you don't really have to work with them as much. For example, these oak trees, I don't water them, and they grow and they stay alive. And I think that has a lot to do with a lot of things in our life. Is that usually we have to put more attention on the areas we want to change, the habitual patterns that we have that we want to change, and then it becomes an easy thing over time. For example, I was saying diet and exercise. Some people are just like, I don't know what to do with diet. It's complicated what I do. I'll simplify it. Don't worry. I'll talk about that. Some people will be like, I exercise. It's so painful. You know, if you haven't exercised for a long time, like it really is painful. I mean, I even took a break a while back to do this little workout routine, and I kind of took off the gym for a little while just to see what it was like to have not been going pretty regularly. It is painful. I can only imagine if you're 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 40 pounds, 50 pounds, 100 pounds overweight, what that really means. So I guess where I'm going with this is that anything you do, any change you try to create, usually can be a challenge at the beginning. But over time, it becomes something that's much easier. It really does. Like, I exercise now, and it's just something I just do, no matter what. Some form of exercise every day. That might not be intense working out with weights. You know, I might just do yoga. And actually, yoga, depending on how you do it, that can be really intense. I did a class, what was it, 2 days ago. That was just, it was ridiculous. So, I think it's kind of funny. But just, that's part of the aspect of mindset I want to get in your mind, is that by first having the awareness of the changes you want to create, the reality around you, even at a mental level, like I said about not putting limits on yourself, just being aware of that. I think in itself, if you make that a habitual form pattern of the mind, because we are creatures of habit, let's face it, we do the same things every day on a regular basis, and you tend to eat the same kind of foods, you wake up in the same way, like you have the same morning routine, same routine at work, da 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 da. But for you to really live the life you really want to live, you have to acknowledge that certain habit patterns you have need to be changed, and you got to find out what that is. And you know, change is something that people usually resist, but I say embrace it. And that's really a form of mindset, is that you can change. You change all the time, and our whole purpose here is to grow, just like that tree behind me. Or just like, I mean, when you're little, think about it, you start out really small and you grow, and then you grow in height. But a lot of people after that, they don't really acknowledge that they're still growing. Maybe they're growing with age, but it's much more than that. There's like a certain refinement you have over time. And what's cool about that also is you have the ability with your will and your mind to really take on a lot of that shape. It kind of reminds me of bonsai trees. These little, I don't know if you're familiar with bonsai trees. I'm sure you are. these little small trees that people make, and how they make them small is they end up like taking out the big leaves, making it smaller. They end up, shaping it, putting it in a smaller pot so it can't grow as big. Maybe they cut it back, but a lot of these times these bonsai trees end up shaping very interesting, because what happens is people are binding them in different ways and making them grow in different ways. And I think we do the same things with ourselves. We are able to, really mold ourselves to a certain extent on our talents, our skills, like what we do in our world, just everything about us. And I just think you should be conscious of that, because you're so powerful. You can really do anything, I think. Like, I really think that we as humans can do much more than we think we can. Especially just look around. Like, the fact that we have all this technology and all this stuff, so to speak, just shows like 100 years ago, much of the things we have that we take for granted for now would have been like miracles back then. They'd be like, oh my gosh, it's impossible. And I think that's another thing about wellness is the gratitude of where we're at. Like, we have running water. Like, if you look back in the day somewhere, like a king would be the only person with like a really warm bath, and there's all these servants to create that. Now we have a little faucet, that's all taken care of like right away. We have running water. Oh my gosh. And so many times we just take that for granted. Or like our car, like you might not have the best car in the world. It might just be an old and busted, who knows. But back in the day, that would have been like one of the most important objects. Like any like a king would get that car, which is kind of funny actually, because there weren't necessarily the paved roads we had. So it might be a little rocky and challenging to go through. But at the same time, you see that what's common now wasn't common back then. Kind of makes me think of what's going to be common in the future, and what that really is going to be. But my whole point is just, you want to be grateful for life. You want to be grateful for the things you have around you. You want to be grateful for the simple things like food and loving relationships. And you want to live a life that feels balanced, where you aren't working all the time and not really appreciating the small things. Like just being outside right now, I feel so just wonderful. Like, it's the morning, it's fresh out here. And just doing that is a great way to start the day. And too often we stay inside, we're behind a computer screen, like we're in front of a desk, whatever. We just don't get out there. And it's part of our health that we're creatures from outside. That's where we came from, but we've confined ourselves to indoors. I find that kind of fascinating. So it's good to mix around these things. It's good to have balance, and the areas that you want to work on too. So just have faith in yourself, persist, and just really make the intention to do something every day, and respect to your wellness, to your well-being, to not only your future, but the present moment, what's going on now. And like I said, this blog is going to be about a lot of stuff all oriented towards wellness, but this material that I know has changed my life completely, and I know it can really have an impact on yours. And so I'm just going to be an ongoing process, kind of at random. I'll be posting all over the place with different things, but I hope you enjoy what I offer, and I really want this to be something that really helps you. So please check back on this blog on a regular basis, and I look forward to sharing with you. Talk to you later.